Welcome to Women's Sports Weekly, where women's sports happen every day, but we talk about it once a week. I'm Carolyn.
And I'm Danielle. Women's Sports Weekly is a podcast where we discuss the latest news, explore interesting stories, and share our love for women's sports. Follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Women's Sports Weekly Pod. Follow us and rate us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Send us an email at womensportsweeklypod@gmail.com, and we may feature your email on our Listeners Experience Zone, The Les.
What a run we've had. It's been a lot of, honestly, months of traveling, and we're back now from the Final Four. And to be very honest, I'm excited to get back to some normalcy.
Same. And we love to travel. We've loved all our trips. We're pretty exhausted at the moment.
Yeah, if you see us on camera, you can see it. It's been a lot, all good things, but I'm like, I just can't wait to get back to a normal routine. I want to reach out to people to interview them. I just want to get back to a regular cadence where we're not just completely packed all the time.
And we did have a few travel snafus. How do you say it?
Snafus.
And we did not get home until what?
3 a.m., 2:45.
Yeah. Well, after 2 a.m.
on Sunday night, Monday
Monday morning. Yeah. Woo. It's one of those moments where you get on the plane and then you have to deplane, and then they had to find us a new plane. We were just going through it.
When we landed, they didn't have someone who could drive the jet bridge over to us, and we waited on the plane for another hour. And so it was just a really, really long night. I don't do well when I'm not sleeping. On top of that, gotta love teenage boys, but there were 3 of them next to us, and they were farting and making fun of the farts, and they didn't stop chatting the whole time. And it just got to be a little bit too much for me.
Yeah, we were both at our wits' end. I must say, I am happy we moved up our flight because I'm happy we slept in our own bed, regardless of how late it is or was, because I think getting up at whatever hour to leave Phoenix on Monday morning, which our original plan was, would have been somehow harder.
I don't know. I go back and forth on that one because I'm like, by the time we got back to Denver and the time we would have had to wake up in Phoenix, it was probably the same time.
I know, but we woke up in our own bed, and
it's true.
That's what was great.
All right, let's stop complaining. And before we get into our Final Four weekend, let's just remind everyone that we're looking for a social media marketing intern. We are looking for someone who could join us during the summer months, May to August, for 15 to 20 hours per week to help us with our social media. This is an unpaid internship. You can do it from anywhere. It is remote. And we really are just looking for someone who has a really strong understanding of Instagram and TikTok, who could shape our social media strategy and post for us. So if you know someone or you are that someone, there's a link to apply in our Instagram Linktree bio and in the show notes of this episode, and the application closes on Friday, April 17th. All right, let's get into the Final Four, and let's start with congratulating our bracket winner for the Women's Sports Weekly bracket, Amber Brady. Congratulations, Amber. You won. You chose UCLA and you had a ton of great picks. So please reach out to us via DM or via our email at womensportsweeklypod@gmail.com, and we will make sure you get your prize. Congratulations, UCLA and Amber Brady. I also want to shout out my brother-in-law, our brother-in-law Matt, who had the most correct picks with 58 correct picks across the tournament. He got 3 out of the 4 regions totally correct.
Yeah.
And if it was very impressive. And if South Carolina won, he would have won the bracket. I think the only thing he didn't guess correctly on was Virginia kind of making their little run. So it was really, really impressive. But Amber Brady wins, and we are excited to give you your prize. So please reach out to us so we can send over your prize winnings.
Similar to previous years, for this episode, we are strictly talking about the Final Four. We had a packed weekend.
Yes.
We love to share what we did during our travels and exploring new cities. And obviously, we will dive into the games, but that's going to be the main coverage for this episode.
Exactly. So if this is your first time joining us, welcome. And this is not how we usually do things, but this is how we're doing it today.
Yes.
And you all seem to love it. So let's get into it. Let's get into Thursday. We arrived to Phoenix on Wednesday night, and then we started our media day bright and early on Thursday, and it was awesome. I would say this time covering media, we were just a lot more confident stepping into the room, knowing how the day works. And I just felt like a lot better about the whole day in general.
It's amazing what 1 year of doing this previously can do for your confidence and just our overall media experience. Like, we've been covering PWHL games. We've been covering local sports. We've been covering just all the experiences that have added up over the past couple of years leading to this weekend. It was like night and day for how I felt, at least, walking into rooms, to your point, walking into press conferences, going up to players and talking to them. Just such a different feeling in my body, which honestly feels good to have that confidence going into things.
We always have to remember, and I always have to remember, we know our shit. We do this every week. We care deeply about the players. We care deeply about women's sports. We don't get paid to do this. And there are people in the media who are covering because they've got sent by their newspaper, they got sent by their media outlet. And whether they like women's sports is up in the air. And that's totally fine because it's their job, but it's not our job. We have a deeper level of passion for it. I always have to remind myself, like, yeah, we should be asking questions in the rooms. We know these players. We know these coaches. We know the season so well because we cover it so deeply throughout the year.
Absolutely. So as you said, we started our media Thursday morning bright and early. Similar to last year, got to go to an ESPN breakfast where a bunch of the ESPN broadcasters come in and they network with all the media in the room. Some people use the time to just chat. I would say most people use the time to get interviews, whether they're videoing with the ESPN broadcasters or a lot of journalists were there. We use this time more so just to make connections.
Yep.
And we got to talk to a few people last year and we wanted to reintroduce ourselves and chat. And then we were just able to join tables with other people and listen to Rebecca Lobo, Holly Rowe speak. And I just enjoy starting the day off like that.
Yes, same. So we saw a friend of the show, Ryan Rucco, said hello to him. We got to talk and chat with Andrea Carter again. And then, like you said, we spent some time with Holly Rowe and Rebecca Lobo, who we didn't get to spend as much time with last year. And so it was good just to get to introduce ourselves and really just hear what they have to say. I also have to say that I'm always amazed by the students who are sent to media days. And I think it's really, really awesome this year. South Carolina had a bunch of students there who are in their student broadcasting program or whatever it is that they call that. They were doing such a great job. And we're talking with Holly Rowe and getting to learn from her. And like, I was sitting at that table learning from her too. And she was talking about how she handles conflict and all of these different things. We're all just learning together. So that was really cool. And of course, like Holly Rowe, Rebecca Lobo, all the people who interact with the students are just so gracious to them. And yeah, it was just really cool to be part of.
Yeah, there were 2 male students from South Carolina who were doing a really good job talking to Rebecca Lobo, and they were asking really informative questions. And Rebecca, at the end of their conversation, she said, "You all are students?" And they were like, "Yeah." And she was like, "Great job, very impressive." And I just think that's so cool to give that compliment, and I think they deserved it.
Yeah.
They did a really good job. And there were older men.
Oh, I got in a fight.
Who were not too happy with not getting their time, I guess, and butting right in. And those students handled it well. So I just enjoyed seeing those interactions.
And let's set the scene a little bit. So it's craziness there. We had the ESPN breakfast, and then you go into press conferences and then open locker room time. So press conference, everybody's seated, you raise your hand, you ask a question, and then the open locker room time is just a frenzy. And I can imagine that it's changed over the years. So now with social media, everyone, including us, wants a little bit of time with players. Like 1 to 2 minutes is
and
usually
we probably
the time
spent
period.
2 minutes with, I was looking at our
Clips.
as I was taking the video, we spent just over 2 minutes with everyone. So we're not spending loads of time. And most people are doing that same thing. They're being respectful of time, but they're taking their one-on-one time that they deserved by getting in front of that player.
Yes. And like you go into a locker room and you stand in line and you try to make sure that you stay in that place and you wait your turn pretty much. But I think what has happened in the past with like major news outlets is everyone stands around one player and everyone just sticks the microphone in their face and then people pepper off questions and you all get the same recording right at the end. And so there was an older man there and he was so frustrated that so much of the media wanted one-on-one time to ask those like quick, quippy questions where you see our clips come from, right? Like we splice them all together. I understand that it's difficult because the media landscape is changing. And this is the environment that we're in now. He came up to me and he was like, this is ridiculous that you expect to have one-on-one time. And I was like, no, sir. No, just no. And I was like, oh, this is how we did it last year. And he was like, no, this is ridiculous. And I just was like, I'm not moving for you and you're not going to get your way in here. And I just smiled at him and kept it moving. I have some empathy and compassion because things are changing and you're not going to tell me how things work. I'm so happy we had a year under our belt because if that had happened last year, I probably would have been like, Danielle, we're doing it all wrong. That man's upset. And this year I was like, no, sir. Mm-mm-mm.
And it wasn't just us. It was everyone else, but this person. And then I overheard another older man speaking, saying something very similar in a different locker room. Again, they're not used to it, so they're upset, but that's just how it goes now.
Yes. And maybe there needs to be a change on like how they do things, but they do have different areas. They have an area where you can just go and stick your microphone up to the one player and she's sitting at a table and you can pepper questions. So go in there, right? There are ways around it. And we operate in the environment and get what we need. And like, I'm sorry, but just wait your turn. You spend a lot of time waiting and that's part of it.
Yeah.
And you have to make decisions accordingly. Anyway, I said we were going to stop complaining. I'll never stop complaining. I want to call you out though, because I was so impressed with you in the press conferences. And I think everyone just needs to hear this. The way you talk to people on a personal level and you make sure that they know that you are important to them. I'm going to get emotional. It's so sweet. And I think the players really appreciated it. I know in Texas's press conference, it was Vic Schaefer and we were like sitting in the seats. It was a press conference and you asked a question to Madison Booker about her love for the game and things like that. And Vic Schaefer was looking at Madison Booker so proud and looking at you so proud of asking that question. And it was just like, you just have this ability to be able to connect with people on a personal level. And I think it's such a strength and it really came out this past weekend. I love to be witness to it. I love you for so many reasons, but to see you operate as like a professional in that environment and connect with people, I was like, oh, I love this woman.
You're very sweet. You're going to make me emotional too.
It was really, really good. So I know that this podcast is not always at the top of your list, but you're really good at it.
Thank you. I think what I mentioned earlier about the experience of different media ventures that we've been on and just getting to speak with different players, I have become more comfortable and I do better not having scripted. Yes, we need to be prepped and it's good to have that prep. And in the past, we weren't getting questions off unless we had something written down because it was way too nerve-wracking. And now that I've got more comfortable, it's easier for me to know what I want to ask on the spot and just read the room and see how things are going and change the way things are being asked to your point, to make sure the players are being seen. And I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. And like you noticed in the South Carolina press conference, all they were asking is about UConn. And in the UConn press conference, all they were asking about is South Carolina. And you were like, this is so annoying that they just have to like answer questions about the other team. So then you just started asking more personal questions about them and their game, and the players appreciate it.
It was fun. You also asked great questions. I think it's just cool to see us both grow in that environment.
For sure. Who were some of your favorite people to talk to?
Kyla Oldacre was, I think, the funniest person we spoke to.
On Texas. I love her so much.
So funny. I loved talking to Tanaya Latson. I truly fell in love with her this weekend. Not in a, oh my God, like, I love you way. More so, I don't know how to explain it.
Like, she doesn't get a super ton of press coverage, and she was just so grounded and so sweet.
So genuine.
Yeah.
I love how her and Raven interact. And I think someone who was such a top scorer across the country last year could have stayed where she was, right? And just be that person who's scoring, but not necessarily the team's not winning, the team's not going to Final Fours. But she just emphasized how much she wanted to be on the team that won. Yeah. And you could tell that's her goal. And she set aside some of her personal stats to make that happen. And I think she fits in so well with South Carolina, and just getting to see that bond and the interactions. I just really like her. I want good things for her.
For sure. Can we tell the story about Kyla Oldacre?
Yes. Going back to Kyla Oldacre. So I always laugh when I'm watching her on the TV, not at her game. She's a wonderful player, but whenever she does things great and the team is going nuts, she just never shows emotion. And I always say she's the most unbothered person I've ever seen play basketball, like always. And then you get her talking in the locker room one-on-one, or you hear her interacting with other people, and she is funny.
She's really funny.
So tell the story.
So there was someone in front of us as we were waiting in line, as you do, in the locker room, and they were from Bleacher Report, I believe. And they were asking just short, quippy questions. And one of the questions...
And this was a male asking the question.
A younger guy. And one of the questions was like, I'm not sure exactly how it was worded, but it was like, what's the minimum height for a short king? Or like, what's
for
the,
you? Yeah.
What's the height that makes a short king a short king? And she like pondered it for a beat. And then she looked at him and she said...
Looked him up and down.
How tall are you? And we were behind him. We were next in line. And they probably can't use the clip because I was cackling in the background. I was like, oh my God, she just read him. And he like nervously laughed. He handled it so well. And she was just being fun and fun to be around. And she was like, probably 5'10". And he was like, I got that beat. I got that beat. It was just so amazing that she was just willing and down to clown. That was a highlight of the day.
Yeah. And I think that's just how you have to handle media, because later on we were talking to Sienna Betts, who's a freshman on UCLA and Lauren Betts' younger sister. Her first time in this environment, she's like, there's a lot of media.
Yeah.
And I don't think I like media.
Yeah. She was like, no offense to you all, but this is a lot.
Yeah. And you were like, I don't blame you. But for someone like Kyla Oldacre, who has seen this, been there, she just was having fun with it. And I think that's just such a great attitude to be able to do that.
Yeah, and I do think the Final Four is different in the level of media and how they interact and the force that they come at you. For a player like Sienna Betts on UCLA, I can only imagine. We said that last year. Like, it was so overwhelming. I don't know how these young players, young kids do this, but you learn a lot in a year. And then Sienna Betts will be ready the following year of, oh yeah, okay, this is how this works.
Yep, for sure. So what players stood out to you that you really enjoyed speaking to besides who we just spoke about?
I think as a whole, we were both impressed by the UCLA players. We were just like, wow, they seem to really be jiving together, and they were really fun to talk to. They were like
sweet.
Yeah, they were down for it. So the UCLA players, I'll put a period on that. And then we were watching the practices again. Again, I was impressed by Texas, and I said this last year, of how they operate and how they move. But we're learning now that maybe the seriousness, I don't know, the seriousness now looking back on the weekend, does the seriousness hurt you when you're like a little bit wound up and a little bit tight? And we'll talk more about that when we get into their game, but we're trying to figure out what's the vibe that is the winning vibe.
Yeah. It's really difficult because there's nothing like the Final Four. There's nothing like the national championship. It is different. And yeah, I don't know what the special potion is for the teams that are going to come out on top.
After meeting with Texas, I was like, they look good and seem like they're super focused, but maybe it was too much, right? South Carolina and UCLA were definitely a little bit more loose, and unfortunate for what happened with South Carolina in the championship, but I don't know. Is looseness it? Is more like head in the game, clear vision it? I don't know. And I think probably what the answer is, every team does it differently, and as long as you're just sticking to your game plan, that's the right thing to do. But yeah, we're still trying to figure out the formula of how can we spot the winning team days before.
Yeah, it is hard.
So let's get into Friday, into the Final Four matchup. So we'll start with UConn versus South Carolina, where South Carolina won 62-48. Bracket busted.
We're South Carolina fans. We did not think this could happen. We both said going into the Final Four, we just thought UConn was untouchable, and we're not the only ones who thought that.
Oh, everyone thought that. Everyone thought UConn was going to roll over South Carolina. And I said, I'll be happy if it's a good game. And South Carolina had a plan that they executed perfectly, and UConn struggled this entire game.
Yeah, it was hard to see someone like AZ Fudge struggle, a senior. her final go at it. She's a likable person, right? Like we love AZ Fudd and you want good things even if you're not rooting for them. And to see her go into that game and struggle, it's just hard when you know it's their last chance at something.
I know. I just wanted to be like, come on, you can do it. This is it. Just figure it out because you're not going to get a second chance at this, especially as a senior. But South Carolina just really had a plan and their defense was suffocating.
I think right from the jump, you could tell they were in it. The first quarter, they were tied 15-15. There were certain points where I was like, is the shoe going to drop? Like, what's going to happen? And they just kept plugging along and playing great and playing as a team. And it was really cool to see.
Raven Johnson started on Sarah Strong, which was such an interesting defensive move. But Sarah Strong plays like a guard and then she can work the inside. And Raven was bodying her up. The day before in media, Raven was asked a question about like who she looks up to in some ways. And she was mentioning a lot of alum and a lot of WNBA players. And she was like, and actually Sarah Strong, like the way she plays is just so composed, who she is, how she moves as a person. It's just really incredible to watch. And then we were in a press conference with Sarah Strong and a journalist brought it up. They were like, Raven just had some great things to say about you. Do you have a relationship with her? Like, what does that look like? And Sarah Strong was like kind of taken aback. And she was like, that's really, really kind. I don't really have a relationship with her. I don't know her that well. Now, hindsight's 2020. You don't think this, but I was like, I think Raven was playing a little bit of head game. She knew that the following day she was going to be on Sarah Strong, and she was like, let's see if this gets back to her. I'm going to talk her up a little bit, say how much respect I have for her. And then it got brought up in Sarah Strong's press conference. And I wonder when Raven was like pestering her, if Sarah Strong was like, yeah, this is why she was saying she had respect for me yesterday.
Yeah, I don't know, but I never think like that, but it could be. It could be.
We were in a section with a lot of UConn fans. This is also something I'm learning. There's not a lot of South Carolina fans.
So true.
Nationally.
Every year this happens. We're somehow surrounded by the other team's fans.
But the UConn fans were good.
Yeah, they were nice. They knew we were rooting for South Carolina. And everyone was just respectful.
Yes.
And when they knew we were going to win, they were congratulating us. And
Correct.
And we were being respectful.
Yeah.
I just think it was a nice crowd.
It was. And I think, honestly, anything's better than an Iowa crowd.
Yeah.
The Iowa fans were nasty when we've spent a couple Final Fours with them. And so UConn fans, they love their UConn. They love winning championships. And they got quiet because this was a rough game for them. Tanaya Latson led the Gamecocks with a double-double, 16 points and 11 rebounds. And she was 10 for 10 on her foul shots, which was huge.
Going to the free throw line and making those count, 10 for 10. I don't care where your points are coming from. That was huge for this game.
And then we got to talk about Agat McKeer, another player that I just fell in love with. And honestly, I owe South Carolina an apology because I was like, I don't know if they're going to make it to a Final Four. I don't know if the team has got the right chemistry, whatever. No, South Carolina is South Carolina. And I was so impressed with Agat McKeer. She's a freshman. I can't wait to continue to watch her play. She's so fast and so lanky. She had 14 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, and hit a couple threes in some big moments that were just daggers for UConn.
She really showed up with composure and confidence to this game. And you just love to see a freshman show up like that in a huge moment.
And then Joyce Edwards and Tessa Johnson also scored in double digits with 11 points and 10 points respectively. Sarah Strong led the way for UConn with 12 points and 12 rebounds. And Ashlyn Shade had 10 points and 4 rebounds.
Those were the only two for UConn that scored in double digits that game, which goes to show you how much they struggled. And it's hard to win when your leading scorers are only scoring 12 and 10 and no one else is putting up more or even the same as that.
Let's get into the Geno Auriemma of it all.
Oof, he did not handle this well and it was not cute.
So let's just break this down, although it's been broken down quite a bit. So apparently, Geno was upset that Dawn did not complete a handshake at the beginning of the game. Now, we've seen the video where Dawn has gone up to every single coach, including Geno, and given them all a handshake. It seems like during the Final Four, there's also an additional time where the coaches can shake hands again. And Dawn was in the huddle and Geno was waiting for her. And it appears that is what upset him, which there's more going on there than just that is my feeling, but that kind of set him off. So then from there, he goes into an in-game interview with Holly Rowe where he says that Dawn is saying things that you don't even want to hear to the referees, and that Sarah Strong's jersey is ripped because of how physical South Carolina is. We've talked about this before on the podcast. I have such a problem with this statement. The SEC is physical, and people love to talk about the physicality in the SEC. There's underlying racism there when people talk about, oh, they're so rough. And we have heard this from Iowa fans calling South Carolina like they're too physical, they're so rough, and like you could just hear the insinuations happening underneath that. So I hated that statement. We come to find out that Sarah Strong did not have her jersey ripped by a South Carolina player. She ripped it on her own.
And it was an accident. She missed a shot. She was so frustrated. She took both her hands at the collar and just went like this, like Hulk. And her jersey, whoop, ripped right down the middle. Yes. And obviously Geno didn't see it. We didn't see this during the game. I didn't even know that her jersey was ripped during the game, but afterwards all the videos showed that she did it. Again, Geno, don't just start spewing this.
Yes.
You didn't even see what happened.
Yep.
Your own player did it, and now you look dumb.
Exactly. And if you have a problem with Dawn, you need to give her a phone call. Mm-hmm. You do not talk about it in the middle of a game at the Final Four. That is just so ridiculous to me. It's so unprofessional. He knows better. He totally lost his shit in this game and just was in the red the whole time and never was able to come back. I just thought it was really, really inappropriate. And then Andrea Carter made a great point post game where she said, if you were so upset about the lack of handshake at the beginning of the game, it's very hypocritical for you then to not shake any player's hand at the end of the game, to say what you said to Dawn and walk off the court. If you want to talk about sportsmanship, that's horribleness right there. He issued an apology. He didn't say Dawn's name. He just said South Carolina staff. It was obviously a PR push. And it's just really upsetting because this is a pattern for Geno of women who beat him, like Muffet McGraw at Notre Dame and Pat Summitt at Tennessee, where he just can't handle it. And it's like, come on, buddy. We all have to lose sometimes, and there's a real nice way that you can lose.
Yeah, it was upsetting to see. And like you said, he did not end up shaking any of the players' hands on South Carolina after the game, which I just think is embarrassing for him and really unfortunate that that's how it ended. And to your point, there is a long history of him and Pat Summitt, and everyone knows that story, and just Muffet. The one thing I noticed in the comments, again, we've talked about how nasty comments can be, and of course, what side are you on, right? Like, are the comments swaying your way or are they swaying against you? But I do think it's important to see this shift because 2 years ago, I think people would have been, and I'm sure there's still people supporting Geno and saying whatever about what he did was fine and whatever. But most people in the comments were saying, what are you doing, Geno? A lot of people were calling him out for, even though he said he wasn't going to make excuses, continues to make excuses. A lot of people called him out for the relationship in the past with Pat Summitt and how it's a pattern. And you could just see everyone was on Dawn's side in this moment. Yep. And I don't think it matters who you are. It's like, no, what he did was wrong. And I just think it's cool that people are recognizing more than just him and seeing full pictures of things in women's sports. And I just think that's so important because people are paying attention.
That's a really great point of just, the tide is shifting a little bit where everyone was kind of like, what the heck was that? And you don't want to see a game end like that. This was a huge win for South Carolina. UConn was undefeated, and then we're spending a lot of people are spending their time talking about this, which we need to, but it's just like that really put a damper on the end of the game.
Another shift that we noticed, not just in the comments or on social media, ahead of the tip-off for the national championship game, and I'm going to say it now because we're on the topic, but they did a full-on compilation of every single NCAA championship. Like, they showed clips from everyone, and obviously Geno has a lot of national championships under his belt, so he was in quite a few of the clips. But every time he was on the screen, the stadium started booing. And we were just like, oh, wow.
Yes.
People are pissed.
Yeah, and it just was loser behavior, right? It's just not something you want to see. And for me, Geno's a competitor, and I want people to be competitors, and I want people to have rivalries. Go for it. There is a line here that was crossed when you start talking about someone personally, when you start mentioning things that didn't happen. And so you can be a competitor and you can hate the person you're playing against, but there are just things that you do and don't do. And he crossed that line here.
And I will say, in that national championship game with the boos, I'll tell you, there were definitely more UCLA fans in the crowd than South Carolina. So it's not just South Carolina fans who are mad.
Exactly.
And I'll leave it at that.
I hope he does some self-reflection of, wow, I really struggle to lose to women.
Yeah.
To lose to powerful women repeatedly, and maybe just do a little bit of self-reflection on that.
Yeah, we shall see. We just spent a ton of time on UConn, South Carolina. We do have to talk about UCLA versus Texas, the other semifinal game that took place after. This was a rough game all around.
Oof.
And both these teams struggled in last year's Final Four, so it was tough to see them struggle again at this stage.
They were lucky they were playing each other because both of them did not look great, and UCLA ends up squeaking this one out 51-44, incredibly low scoring.
Unfortunately for Texas, they did not look good at all.
Right.
I said at the press conference on Thursday, I felt like the Texas players just felt too serious. And we talked about it. We don't know what the right thing is going into a final game or going into a semifinal game. But I just felt like up until this point, they were having so much fun in the tournament that it made me sad that they tightened up at this point and just couldn't do it. Poor Madison Booker. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about her. The media kind of not ripped her apart, but asked hard questions in the post game. She did not play well. That was obvious. She typically is their leading scorer. She's a leader on the floor.
Yep.
She just did not have a good game. Her senior teammate, Rory Harmon, really stuck up for her. And that bond, and you could tell Texas is close. And it's nice to see that they have each other's back. It is what it is. They didn't play well. It sucks. And it was just sad to see, honestly.
It was sad to see. I really love Vic Schaefer. I love him as a coach. You can tell that the girls he coaches love him so much, and he knows how to get to the Final Four. It's just like that next step of how to close that out.
Yep.
But really unfortunate for Texas. Kyla Oldacre led the Longhorns with 11 points and 7 rebounds. Madison Booker, as you said, struggled 6 points with 7 rebounds. And then senior Rory Harmon added 8 points and 5 rebounds. I just love Rory Harmon so much. I hope with the expansion drafts and everything that's happening that she finds a spot in the WNBA.
Yeah, she struggled with injury over the years, but Vic Schaefer could not say enough nice things about her and her career. And I agree. She has had an incredible career. It's sad it ended the way it did. And I just hope she has a bright future ahead, which I'm sure she does in anything she will do.
For UCLA, Lauren Betts had 16 points and 11 rebounds. She also had some sick blocks that just totally deflated Texas towards the end of the game. And Gabriela Jaquez and Gianna Neepkins both had 10 points and 4 rebounds. Kiki Rice for UCLA added 11 points and 5 rebounds, and UCLA goes into the national championship.
They came to play that game, which we will get into in a little bit.
Also that day, we saw the stud buds. They didn't want to talk to us. We were leaving, and we saw them as they were leaving. I was like, hey. And they were like, hi, and kept it moving. We also saw Nola Henry, head coach for Rose Basketball Club in Unrivaled, and now new assistant at Las Vegas Aces, out at breakfast that day. She was awesome.
Yeah.
She's so cute. So that was pretty cool. It's always nice in a Final Four weekend. You could just be walking around. We saw the Syracuse coach a bunch, just out and about. That's one of my favorite things about Final Four weekend. So let's get into our Saturday, where there are actually no games, but it's our day to explore. And we woke up and went to the Phoenix Botanical Garden, which I cannot say enough good things about. And maybe it's just because we're getting old, but we saw a ton of birds and a ton of cactus, which I didn't know I love cactus so much. And then we went into a butterfly pavilion and saw all these amazing butterflies.
Yeah, it's called the Desert Botanical Garden. I actually have never heard of it before going to Phoenix. Some of our friends shared recommendations and said we should go do it. And I'm so happy we did. We were kind of on the fence because we were just like, should we do that? But we were like, it's a beautiful day out.
Yep.
It's outside. I looked at pictures. I was like, oh, we are going. It looked so beautiful. Really, the cherry on top of all of this is when we were walking through the gates, I saw a sign, dog days at the garden, and I saw all these dogs walking in. They allowed dogs in on certain days from a certain time frame, and we were in during that time frame. my heart was melting at all the cute pups in the garden.
We got to touch a lot of cute pups. Scout is at our feet now. She's not jealous because she was here in Denver with our friend Crystal, and she loves being at Crystal's house, but we love getting to see pups in the wild.
And I miss Scout so much, so it was nice to get my fix seeing all the other dogs at the botanical gardens while enjoying all the beautiful scenery and cacti and all the other plants that they had to offer.
Yeah, we took a lot of pictures.
I have so many pictures.
But it was amazing. So if you're in the Phoenix area, we highly recommend checking it out. I also just really like Phoenix as a city to go to for the Final Four. The weather's great. It was super sunny and hot during the day, but it's like that dry heat, so it's not humid, and some cool things to see. Different landscape. The desert areas always feel like Mars to me because everything's just so red. So I really liked being in Phoenix.
Yeah, I would definitely go back and explore different parts of it. We spent a lot of time downtown, but I am happy, especially on Saturday. It is always nice having that day in between games to explore the city you're in, being in that warm environment and going to an outdoor botanic gardens. It was a really nice way to spend our time.
After that, we headed to Title IX, which is in North Phoenix. Melrose, I think, is the area that it's called. And it's a women's sports bar in Phoenix and had a huge Diana Taurasi photo of her scoring, and then the ball was in the photo, but then they put an actual WNBA ball on the wall, like so it was like 3D. It was really cool to be there. The space was great, nice and big, and we were able to get a drink there, and I was just like, this is just so amazing that you have a place to go to in a city.
We have the 99ers here in Denver, as everyone knows we talk about all the time, and to get to see another women's sports bar in a different city, it was a lot of fun, and just love the different vibes you get to see at these types of places.
We ran into friends Heather and Chelsea who also listened to the show, and they gave us a great recommendation for lunch.
Ooh, that place was awesome.
It was right down the road. It was called Valentine or Valentine's. I don't know what it was, but it was delicious, and we love a good recommendation, so we were very thankful for that. And I just, like you said, just like to explore a different area and get to eat all the good food and see the new places.
And then that night, we got together with a bunch of my Moravian people. That's where I went to school, Moravian College, which is now Moravian University. It's a Division III school for our new listeners in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Shout out.
Plug it.
There's always a crew from Moravian who goes to the Final Four every year. And then there's other people who, whether it's their first time, like we got to see our friends Alicia and Marie, who I played with for a few years at Moravian. And it was Marie's first time at the Final Four, which it's always fun to see people experience it for the first time.
And be like, I want to come back every year. And you're like, yes.
Yeah. So we got a lot of good time with the Moravian
crew.
Yeah, the Moravian crew. And we went to a party that night, and then we just bopped around some bars with that crew afterwards and really just got to catch up with everyone. And I just always enjoy that time.
Yeah. And then we ended up at a gay bar, as we do during our Final Four weekend. It was interesting. It was called Boycott, and it was exactly what you might expect. We had a great time, got to, bop around, see our friends out and about. That was our big night out.
We are getting old. We were the first two to leave, and we were very happy about it. We both gave each other a look. We were like, you good?
Yeah. Let's go get some food and go home.
Yeah. And it was great. We got to see people, we got to hang, and we're like, it is our time to go to bed.
We know when to quit now, which I think is a good thing.
It's a wonderful, beautiful thing.
All right, let's get into some updates from us.
Yes. This week we have Run Club Thursday night and every Thursday, 6 p.m. at the 99ers Sports Bar. If you listen to our podcast, we share a secret word each week. And after our 3-mile run, you can share the word with the bartenders for 50% off your first draft. The secret word this week is Bruins.
It's got to be the Bruins for UCLA. We also need to take this time to ask you to please rate and subscribe to our podcast. We love to do this. We want to continue to do it, and we cannot do this podcast without you. If you would like to support us, rate, subscribe, give us a positive review, and share this podcast with the people you love. Thank you to everyone who has rated the podcast so far. If you send us a screenshot of your 5-star rating, we will send you a Women's Sports Weekly sticker in the mail for free. Let's get into the deep dive and talk about the national championship, UCLA versus South Carolina. I was wearing the exact same outfit that I wore on Friday because I thought it would help South Carolina, and it did not.
And I did not wear the same outfit, which I said to you, are you okay if I wear something different? Because I don't want you to be mad at me if they lose. Are you mad at me?
I'm not mad. I don't think anything could have helped South Carolina. And UCLA was just on a war path. They crushed South Carolina 79-51 to win their first NCAA women's basketball championship after a 48-year wait. They did win in the, what is it called?
Oh, I have
in the previous IAIW, is that what it's called? AIAW era. They had one in that era, but never in the NCAA era. So to see them win was just really awesome.
The year they won the AIAW was 1978. So it's been quite some time.
This was the third largest margin of victory in title game history. They controlled the game from the start, the Bruins did, and they never trailed in this game.
Yeah, I would say it was safe to say that this game was over pretty early on. We didn't want to believe it. I was like, come on, South Carolina could come back. But deep down, I knew they weren't going to just because of how flat they came out. I held on to some faith, but I was not too confident that they could.
At halftime, it was 36-23. UCLA was already up in double digits. And I was like, if they can cut it to 10 in this third quarter, we might have a chance. But no. It just got worse and worse and worse.
Yeah, and with this win, UCLA now extends their win streak to 31 games, which is very incredible. And I would say this win was consistent with the way they played all season. They were dominant on the inside. Lauren Betts played incredible, but it wasn't just Lauren Betts.
Yep.
There were so many players who were just getting the ball down low and just finishing.
Angela Dugalich
was playing great. When she came in, she played great minutes. They were just destroying South Carolina down low. South Carolina could not stop them.
They couldn't get a rebound. South Carolina couldn't get a rebound.
Man.
It was horrible.
Horrible.
I was so impressed by Angela Dugalich watching her live. The way that she reads defense and her ability to hedge, and then just how smart she is. You could just tell the game is clicking in her head all the time. I was just like, whoa. I have not been on you, Angela Dugalich, and I thought you were very impressive this whole time.
They also played very unselfish offense and amazing defense. You said the rebounds, they were on the boards on both ends of the floor.
Yep.
They really just wanted it more. And you could just tell, because when you get out rebounded like that, you just know the other team wants it more. It's as simple as that, because that's effort, that's boxing out.
Yep.
That's doing the little things right. And it was just unfortunate for South Carolina. They also held South Carolina to 29% shooting from the field and really just shut down South Carolina's star players.
Yeah. And a lot of times I was like, just get the ball to Tessa Johnson and let her create. But they were making it difficult to do. And South Carolina just didn't have it. They looked tired. They looked frustrated, and it was difficult to watch for me as a South Carolina fan. But then at one point I just touched you and I was like, we just have to be happy for UCLA and watch them do what they're doing right now, which is pretty amazing.
The cool thing about UCLA is all their seniors scored every single point in that national championship game, which I just think is such a cool stat. So cool for those 6 seniors. Lauren Betts, who has struggled with mental health, who has, I think, overall as a player, just you've seen her grow over the years. She was named most outstanding player. She had 14 points and 11 rebounds in this game. We already said she had 16 points in the last game. She just played great in this tournament. Gabriela Jaquez played an unbelievable game, maybe the best game of her life. She had 21 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists, and obviously biggest game of her career. Also so cool to see her brother there, who's a former Bruin, current NBA player, supporting her. They've always talked about their relationship and how they're close, so I think it's awesome to see him out there holding the trophy with her.
Which he never got to do. Yeah.
So always love to see the sibling love. 5 of the UCLA players, talk about a team win, scored in double figures, which shows just the chemistry of the team and that balanced win. And like I said, the seniors scored every single point in this game.
Gianna Neepkins.
She had some big shots and big moments.
Corey Close, head coach for UCLA, had a plan with these players, brought in great transfers like Gianna Neepkins, like Charlize Ledger-Walker, and just created this national championship team.
It is cool to see her win her first national title. In her 15 years as head coach at UCLA, it all came together this year. Dawn Staley had great things to say about her and how she not only raises the game from a UCLA perspective, but just overall. Also, Corey Close is very big on wanting to pick her players up and coach them in a way that's going to raise them as humans and not bring them down. And I heard her talking in an interview interview where she had mentioned when she first started coaching, all the great coaches were screaming at their players, ripping them down. And she knew that's not what she wanted to do, but it was like, can I be a different coach and still be successful? She talks about her ties with John Wooden and saw how his coaching philosophy, coach to the heart, brought his players up, and he still won. And she credits him to her coaching philosophy because she says that made me see that I can coach the way I want to and still be successful. And I think that's really powerful.
After last year, just UCLA playing so poorly in the Final Four, it's really cool to see the adjustments that they were able to make to get back here. It's very difficult to get back to a Final Four and then end the job. And to see those 6 seniors just be celebrated in that way and do so well in this, it's awesome.
And I also think it speaks volumes the way Lauren Betts talks about playing for UCLA and Coach Kolos. Lauren Betts, for those who don't know, started at Stanford. Someone asked her in one of the press conferences about her transfer, and she said, at the end of the day, I wanted to go somewhere I was going to be happy. Since then, she had to take time away from basketball at UCLA for depression and mental health struggles, and she has opened up about that since. But for her to stay on a team, for her to be able to have that relationship with Corey Close, who sees her struggling and could still pick her up, I just think speaks volumes to Corey as a coach and the culture she has created on the team, because Lauren Betts talks about she was scared to share what she was going through with her team, and they were nothing but supportive to her.
I think it's so important that coaches and organizations treat players like people. You don't want to see someone with Lauren Betts' talent and her size stop playing basketball. Coach Corey Close wanted what was best for Lauren. So if that meant like not playing basketball, then that was fine, but wanted to give her that space. And I think as a player, when you're like, my worth is not determined by whether I play basketball or not, my head coach will love me no matter if I choose to continue or not. It gives you that freedom to be like, I can just take care of myself and then return when I feel ready.
Yeah, it is cool to see that. I, on Sunday, was not ready to be happy for UCLA because when you're a fan of something, it makes it much more difficult to watch these games and to be happy for the winning team. Now, I think looking back, I can be like, okay, I'm happy for them. We spoke to so many of their players. They were all so sweet. To see a team win their first national title, very cool, especially to see 6 seniors do it together.
And with this win, UCLA becomes one of a few programs to win a national title in its first championship appearance. And Coach Close, Coach Corey has been doing this for 15 years and finally gets it. And a lot of coaches coach for a lot longer than that and don't get their national championship. So also pretty amazing to see.
Yes.
The all-tournament team for the 2026 March Madness Women's Final Four was Gabriela Jaquez from UCLA, Kiki Rice from UCLA, Lauren Betts, who also was Most Outstanding Player from UCLA, Tessa Johnson from South Carolina, and Tanaya Latson from South Carolina. And that closes out our Final Four weekend. Woo!
Another year in the books. It's hard to believe.
This is our 3rd year covering it on the podcast. Is it our 4th year in a row going and our 5th one total? Is that right?
I believe so.
Because we went into 2018 and then we picked back up in 2022.
Yes.
Very, very cool for us. Glad to be able to cover it once again. And yeah, we're growing. The game's growing. UCLA is winning a national championship. Oh, do you want to do your Final Four for next year?
Not yet.
Okay.
Way too soon. But I will say, I called it from the very start of the season. The Final Four was right. UCLA winning was not on my bingo card, but I did get that Final Four correct.
That is right. Let's get into what we're looking forward to this week. Danielle, what do you have?
We haven't talked about the WNBA this episode, but there's a lot happening. Trades are happening.
Angel Reese to Atlanta.
Expansion drafts are happening. But I'm looking forward to the WNBA draft. It takes place this coming Monday, April 13th on ESPN. The exact start time is still up in the air, but check it out. It should start around 7:30 p.m. Eastern. I still don't know who's going to be the number 1 pick. Maybe after this performance, Lauren Betts cemented her way as number 1 pick, and we'll see what happens. But I just love the WNBA draft. So really excited to see the fits.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what Lauren Betts wears because she knows how to dress. So yeah, I'm excited for that.
Will Paige be at AZ's table? AZ was at Paige's table. I'm really interested to see that.
I know,
I have so many questions.
Yeah, can't wait for it.
What do you got?
In the PWHL and women's hockey, Montreal takes on Boston on Saturday, April 11th at 7 p.m. Eastern time. At the time of recording, Montreal sits at the top of the table in the number 1 spot, and Boston is in the number 2. And we will get back to covering all the sports next week.
Yes, but for now, that is it for this week. We will see you next week on Women's Sports Weekly. In the meantime, watch women's sports and share the podcast with your friends. Rate and subscribe to the pod on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. Thank you for joining us.
Bye-bye.